Well, I don't think they could ever actually have. I mean, just think about the last 2 years. So how long it takes a college to develop a course, fact check it, make sure everything is good in the course, write a textbook at that. By the time
fall anywhere.
Yeah, by the time that would happen, we would have changed 10 times over.
Yep.
So
100%. The marketing, just if you look at marketing, right?
Right.
I mean, hey again, friends. I am Jess.
I'm Shasta.
And we are the Chicks in Charge. And we are here with you today to bring you a very special guest. We have Amber Lee Allen with Dealer Merchant Services with us today. Hi, Amber Lee. How are you doing?
I'm great. How are you? Thanks for having me. I'm thrilled to be here.
Yes, thank you so much for taking time out of your day to join us. We really appreciate it.
Absolutely. It's my pleasure.
All right, Amber Lee. So for the people that don't know you or what you do in the industry, which I find hard to believe because you are everywhere, tell our listeners today what it is that you do and what solutions that you bring to our industry.
So I started in the car business in my early 20s. I started a company called DI Marketing. I started back when radio remotes and direct mail were very, very popular. And now my main focus is dealer merchant services. We help dealers pass along their credit card fees to their customers, but we help them do that within compliance without disrupting CSI. So I have both companies, but my main focus right now is dealer merchant services. And it takes them getting used to being all over the place on LinkedIn. So
I'm sure it does.
I was looking at your LinkedIn right before we started. You have over 20,000 followers on LinkedIn.
Yeah, I don't know how that happened.
Because you're a badass.
Thank you. I'm grateful for that. Thank you.
Yeah. So we were kind of talking just a little bit pre-show, and dealer merchant services really got its start because dealers were uneducated to the fact that they could pass that credit card fee through to their customers. Tell us a little bit about that, where you were at whenever you started dealer merchant services, what made you start dealer merchant services, and how did you know there was a need in the market?
Sure. So I'll give you I'll go back a little ways, right? When I started my marketing company, I was lucky enough to have great marketing clients throughout. And I took a little time off from the car business. I had some kids, and I also had a brain tumor. That's probably a different subject for a different time.
Wow.
But I found out I was very sick. And so I had brain surgery. I was taking time away from the car business. But after my brain surgery, I realized how much I miss being an entrepreneur and growing a company. So I decided to refuel that business and get back into the car business. So I started talking to everybody I knew in the car business after I'd taken a break. And I knew that direct mail was really not going anywhere, but digital was on the rise. And so I started talking again to everybody I knew in the car business. What's working, what's not working, what's working for you, what are you working on, what are your problems, what are the solutions, all of those things. And so digital marketing, that company was starting to gain momentum again. But then I started hearing about cash discounting and surcharging and passing along their credit card fees. And so one of my marketing clients said, I asked him about it. I sought counsel with one of my best clients and said, what do you think about this? Would you ever consider passing along your fees to your customer? And I said, of course, if it made sense, right? If it was legal, if my accounting department didn't blow up, if you could train my staff the right way, of course, it's a massive expense and we love to try to recoup that. And so I went back to the drawing board. I started doing a ton of research and then came back to him and said, okay, I think I've got it figured out. And he said, okay, I'll give you a shot at one of my smallest stores. And so he became dealer one, which is great. He's still my client today with both companies, as well as his two huge, and now he just added a third huge Toyota store, top 10.
Wow.
So he really kind of believed in the concept. And so from there, we've just kept going, 725 stores later in 40 states. So that kind of it's a long way to get there, but that was the journey in which it happened. I knew that after I healed from my surgery that I wanted to be an entrepreneur again, do my thing again. And so here we are.
Love that. Now I'm going to back up just a little bit. Did you start out in auto? Have you been in auto your whole career?
Basically, so I went to Ole Miss for college. I graduated from Ole Miss and I was living in the Houston area and I was selling beer and wine to grocery stores and liquor stores. I made friends easily, right? Because
Yep.
always had all the stuff to bring to the parties. But needless to say, I met a guy that owned a direct mail company in automotive and I worked for him for a little while. I worked for one other and I decided that I wanted to go out on my own. And both my parents and my grandparents were entrepreneurs. So around our kitchen table, if you had an idea, it wasn't going to be squashed. It was something that
Right.
they would help, okay, yeah, sure, think about it. I mean, it's not an easy road, but if it's the road you want to take, we support it. And so I've had, again, that marketing company for a while. And so my very short stint in selling beer and wine, but then after that, I've been in automotive. So I think I was 22, 23 when I started, and then 24 when I started my first business.
Wow.
That's awesome.
What was the hardest part of doing that?
Oh gosh, I mean, just believing that you would figure it out. I mean, I would say you don't know anything. I mean, you can ask a lot of questions, but in the years that I've had my own gig, there's so many things I've learned. I have so much scar tissue, things I've learned the hard way, but that's what gave me the confidence to start Dealer Merchant Services, right? If it was my first gig, I didn't know anything about credit card processing, but because I'd figured it out before, I think it's just some of that blind faith, knowing that you can put one foot in front of the other and you'll figure it out. So,
Right.
That's impressive. So my next question to you, Amberly, is you were 24 when you started your first company. Did you already have kids or did you get your career going first?
good question. So I did not have kids. I didn't have a mortgage. I didn't have a family. There certainly was less to risk at that point. Right. So no, my kids are 8 and 9. So they have been with me, through the second journey, but not my first one. Yeah.
It's super cool that you were able to balance starting a family and raising children on top of not just one, but now 2 businesses that you have opened and continue to run yourself.
Well, I'm really lucky. I talk to my kids a lot about working hard, going after what you want in life, that you really have to figure out what you want and you have to work towards it. And they see me balancing both. They're respectful. They're in the other room right now on their summer break, knowing that mom's in a meeting, right? And that's simply because they get to enjoy the fruits of my labor. And we just went to 2 state conventions in Destin. They got to go with us, right? So
Nice.
they get to enjoy that, and they know that that's a privilege. And so
Right.
there is a level of respect that I think they have learned over time. But to your point, when we were talking earlier, is that there really is no balance.
No. I always say it's not balancing, it's juggling. It's always juggling.
It's always juggling. That's right. And I think I asked a woman early on when I was at one of these big women's conferences, how she balanced it, because I didn't even have kids at the time, but I knew I wanted to, right? Mm-hmm. And she said, frankly, there is no balance, but you have to try your best to be present as much as you can while you're working and give it as much of your presence while you're working on the business. And then as much of that while you're at home.
Right.
And if you're spending your time feeling guilty, because we all have mom guilt, but if you're spending that time feeling guilty with one or the other, right? I'm not spending enough time with my kids, or I really should be working, then you're really doing yourself such a disservice, right? I mean, you're not really focusing on either because you're sitting in a place of guilt, which isn't serving you. So I would say that you have to be able to pace yourself, right? This is a sprint and a marathon is what I tell my staff, right? Because it is both. It's making sure that you rest on the weekends.
Right.
If you have to work on the weekends, there is no rest as a mom, right? There is no rest as a business owner. You'll never get an out of office notification from me because I'm never out of office. And it's not because I don't take breaks. It's that I know that I have to pace myself. And so we have a very odd saying in my company that on the weekends, I tell them to plug in their vacuums. And what I mean by that is starting Monday, we're back at it again, playing full on. And if you're going through the motions and you're not connecting to the things that bring you joy, then you're just going through the motions, right? But if you're connecting, if you're plugging in that vacuum, and that's what I mean by that, it's an odd saying, but if you're plugging into things that bring you happiness and joy or rejuvenate you, that's really what's going to keep you to be able to pace through the next week, the next day, whatever it is.
I totally agree with that. So you have 72% of your staff are women.
That's right.
How do you think that not only being a mom and an entrepreneur, but being a single mom and an entrepreneur has allowed you to really relate to your female staff in terms of them being moms themselves?
Sure. Well, one in particular just had a baby, and I think that we look at that entire season in life so differently than maybe a bigger business, right? For us, we were trying to be very understanding on, okay, she might want to come back early, or she might want to take the full leave, whatever that is. And we gave her those opportunities. I would say that as a woman, I'm lucky that I think I have perspective. But if you give a strong, smart woman a task, she'll run through walls to make it happen. And I think that that's where so many businesses, once they realize that they can get strong, smart, capable, determined, focused women, regardless of if they have personal lives, that they will be loyal and they will run through a wall for you. At least that's been my experience with my staff. So.
Yep. I agree. And I think we've seen the same thing here. Like Jess had said in the beginning, we're our CE or C-suite staff is 100% women. Our managers are 75% women. So it's the same way here. And I'll tell you, it's been a game changer, and it's not anything at all against men. We have one of our top managers is a man too. And I mean, just the balance of those is something that you don't see in a lot of businesses, especially in automotive.
So earlier we were talking about Dealer Merchant Services was the fastest growing credit card processing company in automotive.
That's right.
What do you think has attributed to that growth? What made you guys just fly above everybody else?
Well, I think that being in automotive, one thing that I think persuades dealers is there's a book, The 6 Levels of Persuasion, and one of those is social proof. And if a dealer tries something and it works for him, then they tell their buddies, right? It makes sense. But one important factor for us, so for 40 or 50 years with Visa and MasterCard, those are the card brands, you could never charge a customer anything differently if they used a credit card. But all of those laws started to change. And it's interesting because I would call a dealer and say, hey, I provide merchant services. I get 25 merchant services calls a day. They all want to make my pricing lower and this and that. And I said, well, actually, mine is different if you'll just give me an opportunity to show you. And they said, well, we weren't even aware that we could pass along those fees. And so I've been doing this particular business, Dealer Merchant Services, for 5 years. The first 2 was all educational. You can do it, but also there's different states that have different rules and different laws, right? Colorado, you can only charge 2% on surcharging. New York has specific rules, California, things like that. So, we really had to educate ourselves, but then that's when we started educating the dealer body that this is something that they could do and that it wouldn't blow up the store, right? And they could save on average between $5,000 and $15,000 per month per rooftop. I mean, it's an unbelievable amount of money for them, and they can put those resources into better places. And I think that's what's so cool. We know that dealers are always sponsoring the Little League, and they're always the drivers of the local economy. And so to be able to take that money and put it back into their own stores and back into their own economies is enormous. We had one dealer build an entire body shop, and it could pay for the entire mortgage on a body shop, which means more techs, more servicing, more everything. Another one raised their minimum wage for their staff. Another one gave better health care. I mean, wow, those resources are better served in the dealership than paying for people's trips to Hawaii every year, right? On their points, because that's frankly all those credit card fees, they're so high because of the rewards. Right? Yeah. So that's a big component of it.
And you have tracked how much money you've saved dealerships since you started Dealer Merchant Services. What was that number?
That's right. So we track it every month for every store. And we are over $25 million in total savings to the dealer body over the course of the last 5 years.
Wow.
That's huge.
That is huge. It's massive. It's huge. And at this point, we're growing exponentially. So Last year, we spoke at the ATAE meeting, which is speaking to all the National Association presidents, right? The state association presidents, because we want to be at the forefront as the expert. They're about to put out an automotive news article that will feature us. And it's about being the expert, but making sure dealers are doing it the right way. We're finding that dealers are not doing it the right way. They're trying to do it themselves and DIY this. And, all of those things are important. But last year when we spoke at ATA, we had 364 rooftops. Now we have 725.
Woo.
We anticipate another 1,000 in the next 12 to 18 months.
Wow.
Right? So it's just massive. We're moving at breakneck speed, but dealers are benefiting from it in a huge way.
And I think you said this earlier, but how long have you guys been in business with Dealer Merchant Services?
5 years.
5 years? Okay.
Yep.
Wow. That is insane growth. That's amazing.
It's fast. It's fast. I think 240% growth year over year. So,
wow.
Do you have a lot of competition in this space?
So what I tell people is that there isn't another Dealer Merchant Services out there that focuses on automotive and surcharging, right? But where our biggest threat or our biggest competition is their incumbent bank. Their bank saying, "Oh, well, I have a program and I can do this for you," and they think that the change it would be too disruptive, so they just use their bank. But I mean, we know that some banks are like working with the government. They don't have any idea about how to train your service advisors on how to communicate this the right way to your customers.
Right.
They don't care about making sure your accounting is reconciling properly. I mean, it's one of these things where that's where we really build so much value, is that our staff has nearly 300 years in automotive. We understand it backwards and forwards, right? So that, I think, there isn't another one like us, but a bank is saying, we can do this for you. And we caution dealers from going that route. So.
Right. Interesting. That's super cool. So we were also talking earlier about how you are a part of Women in Automotive.
So I know Veronica very well.
Okay.
I know her from when she was at Dealer Built. I missed the convention this year, unfortunately, but I hope to be a part of the organization going forward. I think in general, I've met so many smart women in automotive. And what's cool is when I show up at these events and I talk to like Cameron Wilson from NADA, for example, and, all these wonderful women, always ask them their origin story, because it's such an interesting way in which we get smart women in our business, right?
And it's almost always by accident.
Always by accident.
Always by accident.
And I'm hoping that things like this, initiatives like yours can change that.
Absolutely. Really, that's been the whole goal for us. I know we've said it many times on the show, but truly, we started this to connect good humans to good humans.
Sure.
Whether it be dealer to dealer for help on a process, like a vehicle buying center that a dealer put in place that we connected yesterday, or dealer to vendor or vendor to vendor for a new partnership. It's so important. And whenever we started out, we didn't have those connections.
Right.
And so getting those connections took us going into conferences. And unfortunately, in the dealership, most of the people that are going to the conferences are the dealer principal, the general manager, not the people like the BDM or the office or warranty people. And those people need connections too. You can't grow without your network. And as we were on a show, I don't remember whose show it was, that referenced your network being your net worth.
Okay.
Totally.
Don't remember who that was, but that was a really great quote. And if you're listening to this and it was you, feel free to comment and let us know.
Yeah,
let us know
that's
that
so
it was
true.
you.
It's so true. And just like they say, you're a combination of the 5 closest people to you in your life, right? Yep. And you see that. You can see that reflected upon, in your own life and others as well.
Right. Amberly, what is one piece of advice that you would give to somebody up and coming in the industry?
I would tell you that you should be willing and ready to work your tail off, right? There's no question that automotive in general works at a pace that is faster than what people are used to.
That's true.
And so that's why we have a tendency to only want to hire people in automotive, because they understand it. They understand the pace. They understand the expectations. When a dealer principal calls, you answer. I don't care what time it is, right? Yep. When they say jump, you say how high. And that's, now I've always been on the vendor partner side. I've never been in retail, but I have, most of my staff has. And so we have that perspective. But I would tell you, working hard it seems like an obvious one, but as hard as you think you're going to work twice as hard.
Right.
It's true.
But at the same time, automotive provides a financial ability that other industries just can't, right?
Yeah.
Being a single mom, I can take care of my kids on my own without any additional support.
Yeah.
And that in and of itself is such a gift and it's such a privilege. And there just aren't very many industries that can provide that.
Yeah.
The other thing that I would say, though, too, is that we have to keep our emotions in check. When we're dealing with men, type A individuals, not just men, but type A individuals in general, right? We have to be able to compartmentalize. And if you can't do that, I'm afraid that it will struggle with you'll struggle with your upward mobility. I really believe that. So those two things I think are key.
For sure.
I tell my staff lovingly, there's no crying in baseball. And that's just the truth, right? It's just, we've got to keep moving because it's now is the time, right? Like lots of emotions and lots of personalities, but we've got to keep moving.
I was going to ask you, with a staff of 72% women, we talked about the great things about that, but do you have any downfalls to that as well sometimes?
Well, I think there is always with any staff, right? There's different personalities, there's different backgrounds. Mine happens to be very diverse because most of ours is a hybrid remote working model. Our headquarters is in Dallas, Fort Worth, but we've got the other half of our staff, half is in Dallas, Fort Worth, but the other half is all over the country. And so making sure we're communicating and making sure we're speaking respectfully to one another, things like that. But for me, as the leader, I absolutely don't tolerate anything but a level of humanity and kindness and respect. And I think the fish stinks from the head down. And so organizations that tolerate bad behavior, I think that comes from the top.
Amen.
So, yeah.
Love that answer. Thank you so much.
I wanted to go back. You were talking about how the automotive industry, just really financially provides, sense of family too, I think. But one of the things that I think gets forgotten about a lot is that you don't necessarily need a formal education to make it far in this business. I mean, I know owners of dealerships who probably didn't even graduate high school.
100%. I think that's a benefit too. I mean, we don't even, it's really not even a factor when we're looking at resumes, right? I would put automotive experience over a degree, a higher education degree over any of that. So I concur. I think that I went to college. I have a degree from Ole Miss, but what I learned how to do was finish what I started more than anything, right? I mean, I think that's great. But at the same time, I learned great social skills. I had a lot of fun and then some, right? But at the end of the day, I think that people's work ethic and ability to be resourceful, navigate, challenges. I think almost sometimes when they don't have a college degree, they feel like they're at a disadvantage and they have to overcome that. And so for me, it's a non-negotiable as far as we don't care. We don't care. They don't have to have it. I do think that's a benefit in automotive for sure.
What I don't think they could ever actually have. I mean, just think about the last 2 years. So how long it takes a college to develop a course, fact check it, make sure everything is good in the course, write a textbook at that. By the time the time that would happen, we would have changed 10 times over. So
100%. The marketing, just if you look at marketing, right?
Right.
I mean, when I started, direct mail was on the rise, and now of all the marketing that I have done, it's been a long time. We just don't do a lot of it. Yeah. It's still relevant at some capacity, but never like it was, and it never will be again. That's all there is to it.
Yeah. Right. I mean, God, this industry changes so fast. The last episode we were talking about pivoting and how that's our main word around here is just pivot all the time, because
always
it never stops. Like the industry doesn't stop moving, and we can't stop moving with it, or we become irrelevant or unintelligent at that point.
Mm-hmm. Totally. You can't become a dinosaur. All the technology changes so fast.
Right.
But to that point, I think people are afraid of AI and what it might do, but we can never underestimate the value of the human interaction, right? I prefer to be live if I can, always, right? I mean, if I can go and show up and speak in front of a group, I'd rather do that over Zoom all day.
Right.
And I think that that's the other bit. Like when we go and train a store, we train online ahead of time just to breed familiarity. But our team are automotive professionals that are showing up in the dealerships. And I think that's what has made it work. I mean, you asked, okay, what's caused the growth, the educational piece, but that we have our hands in the clay all day in the stores.
Mm-hmm.
That's a big piece of it.
Absolutely. That's so important.
Yeah.
And I know this sounds, our team absolutely loves being in the car business. I mean, truly, honestly, you can sense it. You can hear it. Like we all are, this is what we'll do forever. Like nobody, and if they don't love the car business, they won't stay at all, right? That they'll find their way out, and they always do, right? But the ones that want to be in the car business, they never really want to leave. I mean, we all have had moments of burnout, and because we're all moving so fast, but in general, these are some of the most resourceful, hardworking, generous entrepreneurs in any industry. And I love to be a part of it. I can't tell you how many people I've been taught so many things, and most of them are dealer principals that are willing to share and generous with their time. So
yeah,
I love it.
We work in the greatest industry in the world, I think.
I think so too. I heard a statistic that said 1 in every 4 people in this country, either directly or indirectly, makes their living by the car business. Whether it's a vendor partner, somebody that works for a vendor, the manufacturer, the suppliers, all of it. And that's just a massive number.
Wow. That is interesting.
That'll make you think.
I know. That's what I'm like, do I know 4 other people that are like, other than like our direct auto industry people? Like, I don't know that I know anybody else.
You'd be surprised.
I mean, I might, but I don't know. Huh. That is crazy. That did make me think.
Yeah.
All right, Amberly. Well, thank you so much for taking the time to hop on here with us today. We really do appreciate it. Where can people reach out to you? Where can people find you at, aside from your social links, of course? Where's the best way for people to reach you if they have questions or want to get to know you more?
Well, please reach out if you have any questions about my career, about dealer merchant services, any of it. I'm always happy to be available for answering questions. But I am on LinkedIn, Amberly Allen. My website is dealermerchantservices.com, and my email and cell phone are all on there. So please reach out. I'd love to connect.
Perfect. And we will include links as well in the description of the show as soon as it goes live.
Perfect.
All right, guys, without further ado, in a world where you can be anything, be kind, because you never know what battles others are facing. So while you're out in the world this week, remember to light it up. I'm Jess.
I'm Shasta.
And that's Amberly. And we've been the Chicks in Charge. Thanks, guys, for tuning in.
Thank you so much.
Yay, you've made it this far. And if you want to help the chicks out and add some value, make sure you subscribe right now.
Click that little red button down below. Do it. Do it now.